It's the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey.
Sir Ed Davey.
I'm going to call you Ed Davey, not Sir Ed Davey. I don't like all these honours.
You can call me Ed if you
I'll
like.
call you Ed, great, actually.
The local election went pretty well for Ed Davey and the Liberal Democrats.
The Lib Dems there actually up a little bit at 16%.
If you're an angry guy like I am that goes online for your politics, you probably also know that UK Reform and Nigel Farage did pretty well too.
You all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Whether right or wrong, Reform and Nigel have managed to position themselves as the alternative to the mainstream.
A blow to Labour and another challenge for the Conservatives.
The Reform vote going up 20 percentage points. Labour, really the biggest victim today. They're down 14%. The Conservatives down 8 as well.
To be fair, Ed Davey and the Lib Dems have done a lot better recently. But I would argue that this is more down to the failures of the other parties than it is to do with people actually wanting to vote for these guys.
Obviously, you read all these things, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and nothing ever happens.
It doesn't change.
So you just feel really disillusioned?
Yeah.
That is a disgrace.
Actually, there's a very good reason for this, and I'm going to explain it to you. And no, I'm not going to use immigration, I'm not going to talk about transsexual athletes or culture war stuff. I'm going to give you basics, like down to the ground, this is why it's not going to happen for them. Now, I'm not a miserable guy, but if you're like me and you work hard and you don't consider life to be such a joke sometimes when the country's in such shit, you're probably looking at this stuff being, what the fuck are you doing? Now, the problem that Ed and the boys have is that they're trying to do this present yourself as a credible alternative thing, but they're also trying to do the clown buffoonery Boris Johnson thing at the same time.
As you can see, he has arrived via sea. Looks like he's on a jet ski. We know he loved these kind of stunts during the election campaign.
Okay, let's break down why this is bad and not just me whining about it, right? So he's chosen this jet ski to arrive to on the conference. Now, straight away, if I'm looking at the symbology of this, I'm going to look at that and say it's a jet ski, right? I'm not going to think Middle England, I'm living in Lincolnshire, I'm struggling to pay my rent. I'm going to think assholes in Dubai and Singapore, right? Who are going around on these jet skis, pissing about while I'm sat in my miserable fucking flat. This kind of symbology is really important to get right. And actually, they did a pretty good job with this bullshit blue wall stuff. It's actually not too bad. I'll give them credit there. That's all right. Now cast your mind back to the dark days of the Boris Johnson campaigns. You probably remember him doing this. Obviously, Boris has never used a drill or lifted a hammer in his life. So why is it that he can get away with this sort of shit?
Would you do that with every course of bricks? Yeah. Really?
They don't want you to think that they're workers. People make this mistake all the time. They say, oh, he's trying to pretend to be a working class guy. They're not. They know that. They're trying to associate with industrialization. They want you to think that they can give you manufacturing back. Nigel Farage did this exact thing as well. Boris doesn't want you to think he's a worker. Farage doesn't want you to think he's a worker. They want you to think that they're going to bring back industrialization, that they'll bring back those imperial good old days.
They want to make you try and think that they're going to bring back this sort of factorial industrial England and relive moments like this.
Today is Victory in Europe Day.
This construction site symbolism isn't just for Reform UK. It's not just a Conservative thing. You know, if I go back to the Soviet Union, they were doing this. If you go back to the Labour government, they were doing this. This is a cross-party thing. It's a common association. So much so that I'm absolutely baffled why no one in the Lib Dems thought to think, maybe we shouldn't do this. Let's go to a fucking construction site.
Look, I get the risk that it'll come across as insincere if they suddenly start doing this now. But it's going to be 10 times more insincere when they start doing it at the next general election. You may as well set the ground now. You may as well start to do this type of shit, right? At the end of the day, they shouldn't undermine their own message. If you listen to the guy, he says this sort of stuff.
Clowns didn't prop up a lying, law-breaking Prime Minister and then allow him to put his cronies in the House of Lords. Clowns didn't do it. The Conservatives did.
So yeah, it's pretty ironic when he's going around doing this shit, but then also saying that. So which one is it, Ed? You need to tell us and you need to commit to one.
That brings me to my second point of why I think the Lib Dems won't be as successful as they think they'll be.
might have that image in your mind when you think of a Conservative voter as a fox-hunting, badger-baiting homophobe.
For the record, Jeremy, I may be a homophobe, but I'm no badger baiter.
And yeah, while there might be some of those people around, actually the vast majority of the Conservative voter base comes from, you know, fucking regular people like you and me.
They ignore this naturally. They decide to go for the sort of Conservative, Labour, Middle England stuff instead. But this is why it's not going to work.
They shoot themselves in the foot with this 100-acre wood bourgeois garden party bullshit. It just puts them in the same filling category as people like Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak. It's just not different.
Even with how pathetic Conservative and Labour have been, the Lib Dems can't even win in this category.
This is what it would look like if the local election share was applied nationally. We can see here in the 2025 election, even though Labour and the Conservatives did pretty badly, Lib Dem didn't really do any better than what they were doing any other year. There's a YouGov demographics report that sums this up perfectly. I'm an autistic guy, so I actually looked at this demographic report for who votes for Labour and who votes for Lib Dem, and it pretty much matches up perfectly. So we can see that they've probably already got all the votes they're going to get. They're not going to steal any more from this category if these same people are voting Labour more than Lib Dem. So even the people in the category that they've identified aren't even voting Lib Dem. They're going to vote Labour instead.
This doesn't even take into account the light blue Farage-shaped elephant in the room.
These guys smashed it in the local election. They did really well by just turning up and presenting themselves as regular people. Whether right or wrong, they managed to appeal to the average demographic, your average voter.
You enjoy a few pints with the lads tonight. Up the rah!
These reform guys aren't going to vote for Ed Davey. They're not going to vote for Keir Starmer or whichever clown the Conservatives elect next. People just see them as a cabal of out-of-touch middle-class idiots. This guy actually sums it up really well.
I don't think they live in the same world as the rest of us, but they want us to believe that we're living in their world.
You see, while Lib Dem, Labour and the Conservatives are pissing about trying to take votes from Middle England, Reform are just taking them from everyone. This is the most obvious thing to do, right?
You see, the Lib Dems are getting a trickle from Conservative and Labour, but Reform are getting from both of those parties.
Look at how lame and flaccid the Lib Dems rise is compared to the Reform. It's pretty pathetic. People are tired of being fucked in the arse by the same people in the last 30 years. So much so that they're going to roll the dice on these other people who are basically the same but with better publicity.
And do you want to make our brilliant, strong leader, Nigel Farage, the next elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
Speaking of being shafted, let's go to my final point.
Now, in the 1930s, there were a lot of economic issues kicking about that are kind of similar today. And on the back of these issues, this Austrian painter managed to take advantage of this to get elected, and he was very popular for a time. We're going through a similar transition today to back then, where right-wing populism is getting really popular, and people are very distrustful of market Democrats.
Who can blame them? For most of my adult life, it feels like things have only got worse, not better.
Family fragility, stagnant wages, poor housing, chronic ill health and crime. The most disadvantaged in Britain are no better off than they were 15 years ago at the time of the financial crash.
Quite simply, a lot of people aren't benefiting from the status quo. People are tired, poor, and pretty scared actually about their future. That's why they turn to these radical types. That's why they turn to these alternatives. It's not because they're racist, it's not because they're horrible people. It's because the status quo doesn't benefit them at all. It doesn't do anything for them.
The simple truth is, if you don't already have assets, money, or, a business that's successful, you probably never will.
Wages have been pretty stagnant since the 2008 financial crash. Almost all of our modern problems come for this because nothing was resolved.
Something that makes me genuinely sad is the fact that most people's lives are defined by this financial crash that happened in 2008. Everything that is a problem today goes back to then.
The Lib Dems could come out tomorrow with a radical plan to change the entire face of the UK. To change not just poverty, but change, opportunity as well. But they won't do that. They're fans of the status quo. They think that if they go back to the pre-Brexit days, things will just be fine, but they won't. These things were always simmering under the surface since 2008, and there's no going back. Reform's plan for this is similar to Boris Johnson's with the whole NHS COVID thing. Just have a little clap and people will be alright about it, yeah? When they actually get into power, they won't do anything.
Why do you think people in this part of the world have turned to Reform UK in particular in these elections?
I just think they can see the way the current parties, they see what they're doing, and they want something different, and I believe that Reform UK is the only party out there that's offering something different.
They need to do two things. One, give people hope.
Whatever your political persuasion, but if you're worried about the rise of divisive populist politicians like Donald Trump and like Nigel Farage, it will be the Liberal Democrats standing up for true British values.
Number two, they need to acknowledge that there are problems in society that fundamentally can't be tackled under the current system, like inequality, like migration, etc. If they do something for this, they'll be able to overcome reform, or at least, you know, stop them from growing as much.
Despite what names they call me, they're so stupid. It only encourages me, really.
But you know, that's just what I think. Tell me in the comments if you agree or not.